She stood on the edge of the old iron bridge, shaking violently as icy wind whipped through her hair, her shoes slipping against the rusted railings while the river roared.
Ah!
Beneath like a beast begging to swallow another broken soul. And just when her foot lifted, ready to step into the darkness forever, a powerful hand grabbed her wrist with such force that she gasped, spinning around to see a sharply dressed stranger whose eyes were filled not with judgment, but with desperation, like he had been searching for someone to save just so he could save himself. Before I reveal who this man really was, and why stopping her meant more to him than life itself, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Hopeful Stories for more emotional, life-changing content Lena had never thought her. Life would bring her here standing on a bridge at midnight with the weight of the world, suffocating her more brutally than the cold air tightening around her lungs. But life has a way of bending even the strongest spirits until they snap. She had lost her job 2 months ago, her small apartment a month after that, and just last week, the last person she believed cared about her, her fiancé Daniel, walked away without a backward glance, leaving only a cold message saying he needed someone less burdensome. She had no family left, no savings, and the world had slowly closed in like a cage with iron bars pressing into her hope. Tonight she had wandered without purpose through the silent city streets, each step echoing like a countdown, until her feet brought her to the bridge over the roaring river, a place where many came with questions, but only some returned with answers. As she lifted herself onto the ledge, her breath trembling, she replayed the last few years of her life, the long nights she worked to support Daniel's dreams, the sacrifices she made, believing love was a two-way street, the friendships she lost, trying to build a future that never belonged to her. Her tears fell like raindrops into the dark water below, vanishing instantly, much like she felt her existence had. Just when the final decision solidified in her mind, a voice sliced through the night deep, commanding yet shaking with an emotion she couldn't name. "Don't," it shouted, and a hand wrapped around her wrist, pulling her back with a force that startled her into stillness. She stumbled into the arms of a stranger whose suit was immaculate, even in the night's shadow, a man who looked like he didn't belong anywhere near despair. "Why would you stop me?" she whispered, her voice fragmented. "Because," he said, catching his breath as if he had been running for miles, "I can't watch another person fall." Lena didn't understand, not yet. But she felt something odd in the man's gaze, like he was drowning in a grief deeper than hers. He led her from the ledge, draping his own coat around her trembling shoulders, despite the cold biting his own skin. "Let's get somewhere safe," he said softly, guiding her to a nearby bench under a flickering street lamp. She sat, hugging the coat, absorbing its unfamiliar warmth. "I'm Ethan," he said quietly, staring at the river as though it held ghosts. "I know what that darkness feels like." Lena turned toward him, studying the sharp jawline, the tailored clothes, and the heavy sadness settling in his eyes like an old resident. "You," she said incredulously. "Like someone who breaks." Ethan gave a hollow laugh. "My sister. She stood on this same bridge 3 years ago. I came too late." His voice cracked, just barely. "I couldn't save her. I promised myself if I ever saw someone like this, a gunny would not fail." Lena's breath froze for a moment. This stranger, this man who held her trembling hand, wasn't here out of pity, he was here out of pain. And for the first time that night, she felt something warm flicker inside her, the feeling of being seen. She didn't know that this moment, this encounter with a stranger in the dark, would become the turning point of her life, nor did she know that Ethan was far more than he seemed. A man whose next words would change her future in ways she couldn't imagine. The silence hung heavy between them for several moments, broken only by the river's relentless current and the distant hum of the sleeping city, until Ethan finally exhaled and leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees, hands intertwined, tightly as though holding himself together. "Lena," he said softly, surprising her with the fact he somehow remembered her name from when she'd whispered it earlier. "You think your life is ending tonight, but you have no idea how much can change from one moment, from one decision. From simply choosing to stay." She stayed quiet, staring at the glowing patterns on the pavement cast by the trembling street lamp. "Why? "Why did you run here?" she finally asked, noticing the sweat on his forehead despite the cold. Ethan swallowed hard. "Because I saw you," he said. "I was driving across the bridge after a meeting and I saw a woman standing alone at the edge. I knew that posture." He hesitated, his jaw tightening. I knew what it meant. She felt a sharp stab of guilt for pulling this stranger into her chaos. "You shouldn't have risked yourself for someone you don't know." Ethan turned to face her with a sudden intensity. "Don't say that. People don't have to know you to care. That's the mistake everyone makes. We assume we're alone because we only count the ones we lost, not the ones who might show up." His certainty stunned her. For a man who looked like he had everything, power, wealth, status, he spoke like someone intimately familiar with loss. "What do you do?" she asked quietly, though she wasn't sure why it mattered. "A company," he answered vaguely. "Nothing important tonight." She didn't press, and he didn't explain that the company he ran wasn't just any business, but a global conglomerate worth billions. A pressure cooker empire that had taken everything from him in the years after his sister's death, driving him into work until he forgot how to feel. But looking at Lena, her shaking hands, the despair still lingering in her eyes, he felt something shift inside him, like a door he'd welded shut had been forced open. "Come with me," Ethan said after a long pause, standing up gently. "Not far, just to get warm." There's a cafe still open by the pier. Lena hesitated, but the cold was sinking deeper into her bones, and something in Ethan's voice made her trust him. They walked in silence, the distant city lights shimmering on the wet pavement, and for the first time in months, she felt a strange sense of safety. Inside the cafe, under warm golden lights and the smell of fresh bread, Ethan ordered her a hot chocolate without asking, as if he instinctively knew she needed something comforting. When the warmth touched her hands, Lena felt tears threaten again, but this time, they carried relief, not despair. She told him everything, losing her job, the betrayal, the loneliness, the slow shattering of her confidence. Ethan listened. Really listened, not offering hollow comfort, but nodding with understanding, his gaze never leaving hers. When she finished, he said something she did not expect. "Come work with me." She blinked. "Work with you? Doing what?" Ethan leaned back. "I run a foundation," quietly, "for people rebuilding their lives. I think you'd be perfect helping others who feel like you did tonight." She stared at him, confused. "Why would you offer that to me?" He smiled softly. "Because someone once told me that saving a life doesn't end on the bridge, it begins there." Lena felt her chest tighten with emotion. She didn't know what future waited for her, but she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Possibility. As they stepped back outside, the sky was beginning to lighten, soft hues of blue melting into the horizon. "Ethan," she said, stopping him, "why help me so much?" He hesitated, then finally spoke the truth. "Because I'm not just a stranger," he said gently. "I'm the CEO of Grayson Industries. People think money keeps you safe, but sometimes it only makes the silence louder." She stared at him, shocked, realizing the man who saved her was a billionaire known to the world as untouchable, but tonight, he had been more human than anyone she had ever known. "Thank you," she whispered. Ethan shook his head. "Just promise me you'll stay. The world needs you more than you think." Lena looked over the river, the same river she nearly surrendered to. And for the first time she saw not darkness, but reflection of hope, of second chances, of a stranger who wasn't really a stranger at all. Together, they walked toward a dawn that neither expected but both desperately needed. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Hopeful Stories. For more emotional and inspiring, life-changing stories,